Thanks for joining us. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman delivered her maiden budget today. What did the principal opposition party make of it? We're joined by Senior Congress Leader Shashi Tharoor. Mr. Tharoor, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Let me begin this conversation by asking you about, the budget at the headline level. The budget deficits have been maintained pretty much under control. The Finance Minister announced some structural changes as well. What, to your mind, stood out in this budget for you?
I think it's sort of a Trishanku budget. It's neither here nor there. The big gap between rhetoric and reality that we've witnessed from this government in the last 5 years continues to worry me, because the entire problem with this particular approach of the finance minister is that it's creeping incrementalism married to some very soaring visionary aspirations which are in fact not supported by any tangible roadmap to get there. I don't know what a $5 trillion economy means when we're not even $2.5 trillion yet. I'm not sure, for example, what $5 trillion means to the Aam Aadmi. All I do know is if you're going to charge 2 rupees extra on every litre of petrol or diesel, it doesn't just affect the people who own their own vehicles, as the finance minister reportedly said in a press conference. It affects every item. The poor Aam Aadmi wearing just a chappal and a shirt, that chappal and shirt have got to the bazaar from the factory in a vehicle using petrol and diesel. So if you're charging 2 rupees extra, that cost is going to be passed on to the Aam Aadmi. These are genuine concerns, and it goes right across the board. The finance minister was silent on the macroeconomic picture. She didn't mention GDP growth, and she did nothing to justify the extraordinarily rosy picture given in the economic survey. She mentioned the fiscal deficit at the very end of her speech and gave the figure of 3.3%, which is exactly the target mentioned last year, which they couldn't fulfill this year. So if they couldn't fulfill 3.3 once, are we setting ourselves up for another failure? And don't forget that every single year of the 5 years Mr. Jaitley was finance minister, he had to calibrate his fiscal deficit projections down every single year. They talk about tax revenues. Every single year they've not been able to collect the taxes that they have projected, which means in turn that expenditure and vital social sectors like health, education, farmers' welfare eventually doesn't match the rhetoric that they're expressing. There's also a bit of outsourcing of some of their governmental responsibilities to the private sector. They keep boasting about the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, but that's something which has essentially benefited only the insurance companies. The insurance companies have collected almost 50,000 crores in premium, but they've only paid out 31,000. And what's striking is that even claims made for the Kharif crop, which was due in December of 2018, still haven't been paid as of May or June of this year. So you're looking at essentially a racket for the insurance companies that haven't at all helped the farmer, and farmer suicides are at a record level. So we're looking across the board for glimmers of hope for the common man in this country and common woman in this country. I'm afraid you don't really find it in this budget. You've got some schemes that may, we hope, attract companies and investors, but I remain profoundly skeptical, because as you know, in this quarter, investment, both private and public put together, is down 81% from the previous quarter and 87% from the same quarter last year. These are dramatic figures. You talk to business people, what will it take to get you to invest in our economy? Well, consumption needs to be driven up, otherwise how can we invest? But consumption will only be driven up if the Aam Aadmi has jobs and disposable money. This government's budget does nothing to create either jobs or give the person money in his hands. A lot of talk of capital, not enough talk about labor, not enough talk about the masses. And we have a demographic dividend in this country which will run out in 15, 20 years. Even the economic survey admits that by 2030s onwards, we're going to end up with an aging population for which we don't have enough hospital beds, for which we don't have enough pension, social security. So how on earth does this budget fulfill the real needs of the vast majority of our people?
Okay, let me pick up the point about investment that you made. And this was something that the economic survey sort of harped on quite a bit. It said that you need private sector investments to be a principal driver of growth. Did you see enough in this budget that creates an enabling environment for private sector to start investing?
Unfortunately, no, but it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what the industry themselves think. And from what I can see of the reactions we've heard so far, it's very, very guarded reactions. They will have to see whether in practice they can unlock the money they have, plus the money that they need to be prepared to borrow, to invest in the limited opportunities this budget opens up beyond what already existed that didn't tempt them to invest. Take something like disinvestment. For the first 5 years, disinvestment has been an embarrassment for India. First couple of years, they literally disinvested zero against very optimistic budget targets of 99,000 crore in the first year and over a lakh crore in the following year. But then they started fudging the account books by disinvesting, by getting one public sector company to buy shares in another. Now they're talking about disinvesting Air India. I mean, the fact is that if you look at Air India, they've already tried once and people have not been prepared to invest. But having said that, when Jet Airways, which is a not profitable but not as badly loss-making a company as Air India, is on the anvil and no one wants to buy it, what reason do we have to hope that people are going to buy Air India? So these are real worries that I'm not sure the government has seriously addressed in this budget.
One area that the budget was not vocal at all was on the area of job creation. Was that an opportunity lost in announcing quick fix solutions, let's say in areas of tourism or construction, where hiring people could have been done easily? Was that an opportunity lost in a sense?
Absolutely. Tourism is a sector I've personally been harping away on because, in fact, tourism, it's said that $1,000 invested in tourism employs 8 times the number of people as $1,000 in any industry. So tourism is tremendous potential and it employs a lot of semi-skilled and unskilled labor. It doesn't take much training to make a waiter out of you or a gardener's assistant or a doorman. And those are the kinds of jobs that only tourism and hotels and the hospitality industry can generate. There have been no concessions announced for any of those sectors. They could have easily, for example, invited major corporations to adopt a tourist site that needed developing and do it for a complete tax break, where they could write off all their expenditure on renovating a tourist site and making it attractive. They haven't done that. There's missed opportunities in all these areas. We have a shortage of hotel rooms, particularly below the 5-star sector. They could have offered incentives for that. They haven't done that. Health and education, of course, goes beyond your question of job creation, but even part of training our people and keeping them healthy. Where are the resources available? In the interim budget, there was a lot of talk of Ayushman Bharat. There is not a mention of it in the Finance Minister's speech today. And as far as education is concerned, I would love to know where they're going to allocate resources. Her only mention was of consolidating research into a National Research Foundation, which becomes one more way of the government interfering in the academic and intellectual life of the nation by centralizing research. But it doesn't address the question of how to improve either capacity or the quality of outcomes. So there needs to be resources. Our taxes must be given for these sectors. If you look at education, for example, just yesterday I got complaints from the students of the National Law School in Bangalore who are already paying $1,80,000 a year and have suddenly been unexpectedly, without consultation, been told the fees are going up by another $50,000. Now, how does a kid on a scholarship, or worse still a loan, make that extra $50,000? That's not the kind of money that most lower middle class children are going to be able to afford for a quality education. Why can't the government invest more resources in things like scholarships, in things like tuition subsidies? That's one thing we used to do. We had a very affordable, decent quality higher education. We seem to be completely destroying that.
Mr. Tharoor, we leave it there. Many thanks indeed for joining us with your perspective. That's the view of the Congress party on the budget presented today. If you have been, thank you so much for watching.